It's been over a year since the first Wired article confirming the PlayStation 5's existence, and after months and months of teasing and drip-feeding information like a Dark Souls plot told through item descriptions, Sony finally gave us the event we wanted, the one about the games. For what it's worth, I did enjoy the deep dive video into the console's specs back in March, as it was extremely enlightening about what the console would be capable of technology-wise, but it didn't scratch the itch I had for the actual games. But now we've got it, and it was quite an event with something for everyone, including a showcase of many first-party properties, which is always good. There are some games that I wished got more gameplay footage because, in the more egregious instances, we'd get what seems to be only a few seconds of it before the trailer ends or transitions back to a cutscene, but that isn't to undermine the general beefiness of the presentation. I won't touch on every single game featured in the show, only those that personally interest me because otherwise this video may be longer than I would like. I do want to brag a bit about my prediction tweet of games that I thought would premiere at this little event, and I'm pretty content with getting 5 out of 6 correct, even if they were fairly obvious. I've seen a lot of other lofty guesses as to what might show up, but a lot of people seem to forget Housemarque, and I did not. We'll get to them and their new game in a bit though. First, I want to talk about Insomniac, because it is extremely clear that they've been busy. If you asked me a week ago if I thought Insomniac would show up here, I would have said they'd either show Spider-Man or Ratchet and Clank, not both. And I would have been wrong, because we got both, and they both look amazing. It came to light earlier this morning that I'm recording, which is the day after the event happened, that Spider-Man Miles Morales is actually a standalone game similar in nature to Uncharted Lost Legacy, not a sequel. This makes sense to me because 2 years struck me as extremely fast for a full-blown follow-up. That being said, will the first game receive a PS5 enhanced version so people can play both back-to-back? It seems inevitable, right? I imagine we'll receive more details as we get closer to launch because this content is slated for holiday 2020, so it may even be a launch title. Now, regarding Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, it looks brilliant. It's colorful, vibrant, and very, very explodey. There's a very flashy sequence where the main characters are thrown through holes in space-time and end up in a bunch of different planets. And this is very obviously meant to show off how quickly different assets can load on an SSD, because this immediate and constant change in detailed environments with far draw distances would just not be possible in real time on a hard disk drive, especially not the 5400 RPM drives in a normal PS4. After the initial trailer, we got a longer stretch of gameplay showing off new, weird space-time mechanics, and it looks really fun. I was very much a Ratchet & Clank kid throughout the PlayStation 2 era, and even into the PS3 era, and I enjoyed the remake on PS4 as well. I'm glad Insomniac is still showing them some love, and I'm eager to find out more about this dimension-hopping storyline, and especially a release date. Next is Gran Turismo 7. And I always say that I'm not super hot on racing sims, but I always end up buying Gran Turismo anyway, despite that. It's happened from Gran Turismo 3 through Gran Turismo 6. I still haven't bought Sport, but I don't think I will, considering 7 is now confirmed to exist. Either way, Gran Turismo 7 looks like Gran Turismo 7. It looks absolutely stunning, and they even showed off some of the UI. And Gran Turismo menus are always gorgeous, even though occasionally really cluttered. Depending on how soon this game comes out after the PS5 launches, it may be the game to get if you want to be wowed by graphics, assuming you're not disinterested in racing sims. Next up is Project Athia. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. There's honestly not much to say about it other than the fact that it's by Square Enix's Luminous Productions team, which is a studio they established to create AAA games on their Luminous engine, which has gone completely underutilized this generation despite being a promising piece of software. There was a small taste of gameplay showing off movement and a tiny bit of combat and some enemies. But a big red flag here is the fact that it's going by a working title. This might be yet another game that takes 5 years to come out after its announcement, but I hope I'm wrong. After that is Returnal, Housemarque's new game. They were originally working on a new Battle Royale game, which I honestly hope they decided to change course on because the Battle Royale ship has sailed by this point, but they put it aside to work on this. Housemarque is no stranger to fast-paced gameplay because their whole career is centered around flashy, side-scrolling or top-down shmups and twin-stick shooters. Resogun was genuinely one of the better launch titles for the PS4, and the more recent Nex Machina, which they published themselves, is also really good. But with Returnal, they've finally stepped into full-blown AAA game territory, and managed to work their visually striking and fast-paced style into a game with a big budget and scope. To say I'm interested in this game is an understatement. I think it could be really fucking fun. Now we have Ghostwire Tokyo, which we haven't seen much of since its reveal last year, where Ikumi Nakamura took the gaming world by storm. We only caught a CG trailer back then, but now we're getting full-blown gameplay, and it's not what I expected it to be. It looks like Tango Gameworks played Superhot and wanted to merge it with Killer 7 and, I don't know, Fatal Frame or something. It looks unique and interesting for sure, but I was not expecting a first-person shooter with magic and mystics and stuff. I'll keep an eye on it for sure. Next is Godfall, which was the first officially announced PS5 game back at the Game Awards this past December. We only got a smidge of gameplay back then, but now the combat is front and center, and I honestly think it looks pretty fun. I've always been curious about a melee-based service game, and I think that a game that combines Monster Hunter or Dark Souls combat with Destiny mission structure and loot system might be really, really entertaining and cool. I want Godfall to be good because I'd like a game like that. Plus, I want a game to co-op with friends in general as close to launch as possible, so I'll definitely keep my eyes and ears open for more Godfall details as the months pass. I want to touch on Kena Bridge of Spirits for a bit, which is a new game from Ember Lab, and I think their first game in general as well. I might be wrong on that. From what we were shown of it, it seems Zelda-inspired, but it reminded me a lot of PS2-era action platformers, so I was fairly captivated by the gameplay as I was watching it. It looks like a very neat game, and honestly, this whole presentation hasn't been lacking in platformers, generally speaking. It looks like a cool game and a potentially great leap into the industry from a budding studio. Kena, and especially Ember Lab themselves, may be worth paying attention to in the long run. Now we enter the ending stretch of big games. First is the Demon's Soul remake from Bluepoint. This was an ongoing rumor for quite some time, and in some cases it was insisted that Bluepoint's project wasn't even Souls related at all. But now the air is cleared and we got our confirmation, and man oh man, I am hyped for this one. I've been rallying for a Demon's Souls remaster or remake for years now, and the time has finally come. When Shuhei popped up to introduce the game, I had my suspicions, but when that upside-down corpse popped up, it dawned on me. The trailer had me ecstatic. It looked amazing, and the direct feed screenshots they released afterward look even better. I have a lot to say about this game and where it may go, and I'm strongly considering doing a separate video on it, but for now, just know that I'm really fucking amped up about this. Next is Resident Evil 8. The rumor mill has been extremely strong with this one recently, and now we know why. We get a snow-covered European setting that reminds me a lot of Resident Evil 4, and Ethan is back as the main character along with the first-person perspective associated with him. We have a big new mansion to explore as well, and we got motherfucking werewolves. I am very intrigued by this game, especially since Capcom's been knocking out of the park with this series lately. Also, it looks gorgeous. The RE engine has been doing wonders regarding visuals. And the trailer ends with Chris blasting Mia away, which may play into the additional rumors that Chris is actually an antagonist here. The trailer opened with the words, "His story comes to a close," and I can only imagine that it's referring to Chris. Or it could be a huge misdirection, who knows. Oh, and it was later confirmed that the attaché case inventory system from 4 is making a return as well, and I am more excited about that than I should be. I fucking love the attaché case inventory. Speaking of Capcom, they showed off Pragmata, which is an extremely eerie sci-fi game with an astronaut and little girl and weird cat holograms and a fake sky, and honestly there isn't much to parse from this game outside of its strangeness at the moment, but it looked astounding, and I'm unquestionably interested. A shame about that release year though. Let's hope this doesn't end up like Deep Down, if you even remember it. Next, we have the long-awaited return of Horizon with Forbidden West, which looks very interesting, especially since it seems to imply that Aloy will be traveling around the world here. We see a tropical location, China, the Golden Gate Bridge, and a vast desert, so we might see multiple large maps here instead of just the one that we got in the first game. The story seems to revolve around some sort of spreading, infectious, plant-like thing sucking the life out of everything it touches. Not much to go on other than that, but we also didn't get a release date for this, so it's safe to assume it's probably a 2021 title, if not early 2022. Hopefully it's no further than that. Finally, the entire show closes with a look at the PS5's hardware, its actual physical appearance. And to be frank, I'm pretty ambivalent towards it. I don't have any particularly strong feelings about it except a couple of observations. One, it does indeed look like a fancy router, admittedly. And two, judging by the size of that disk slot, the whole machine is probably fucking gigantic. I've seen some size comparisons on the internet already using the disk slot and the USB port as references, and this thing is likely a goddamn monster. I'm talking launch PS3 big, if not bigger. I don't mind the size personally, but it might be something to consider if space is limited in your entertainment center. You may need to do some rearranging for this beast. I'm really glad to see USB Type-C being used, and I do think the DualSense looks aesthetically pleasing. And that basically concludes all of my thoughts about the PS5 event. As I said, I didn't cover every game shown, but I found it to be an ultimately satisfying presentation that had a huge variety of titles to show off. It leaned a bit more towards a casual audience, I suppose, but that doesn't mean all the games looked bad or anything. I'm excited for a lot of stuff here, and I'm eager to see what the console's launch titles are, so I know how much money to save for fall. I just don't want another post-launch drought that was as bad as this current generation's. I remember getting my PS4, playing a few games on it, then returning to my PS3 for months at a time before the PS4 finally became the machine that I turned on every day. Regardless, I am excited to begin a new generation, especially one with less load times. As someone who's been stuck on a base PS4 since November 2013, I am very enthusiastic to move on. But for now, the wait begins for a launch date, price, and launch lineup, and I am counting the days. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.